In December 1978, an elderly woman in a small Japanese town looked out into her garden and saw another woman standing there, perfectly still, wearing a surgical mask. Watashi kirei? Am I pretty? Within months, this story spread to every corner of Japan. Schools sent children home in groups. Police increased night patrols. 99% of children in the country knew her name. This is the story of Kuchisake-Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. And what she actually represents is far stranger than the ghost story itself. Part 1. The Legend. The story always begins the same way. A woman is walking alone at night. Another woman approaches. She is beautiful. She wears a surgical mask or holds a fan over her mouth. She asks one question. Am I pretty? If you say no, she kills you on the spot. But if you say yes, she lowers the mask and asks again. Even like this? Her mouth is slit from ear to ear, a wound some call a Glasgow smile. There is no answer that saves you. Part 2. Where she came from. The roots of this story go back to the Edo-period, 1600 to 1867. In the oldest versions, she was the wife of a samurai, unfaithful, caught. Her husband sliced her mouth from ear to ear as punishment. But here is something the modern story leaves out. In the original folklore, she wasn't always a victim seeking revenge. Sometimes she was a kitsune, a shape-shifting fox spirit, playing a prank on travelers for a laugh. The horror wasn't always the point. Sometimes it was a joke. Then, in December 1978, in Gifu Prefecture, an old woman claimed she saw a real woman with a slit mouth standing silently in her garden. One sighting, one rumor. By the summer of 1979, it was a national phenomenon. Newspapers ran headlines about her. Children swore she had chased them. In Himeji, police even arrested a 25-year-old woman for dressing up as Kuchisake-Onna and carrying a knife through the streets. The papers declared the panic over. They were wrong. Because the story didn't need to be true. It just needed everyone to believe that someone else had seen her. Part 3. Why this story and why then? Here is the question that matters. Why did this story explode in this moment? Japan in the late 1970s was changing fast. Cities were growing, suburbs were spreading. And children, for the first time in generations, were traveling alone, to cram schools, through unfamiliar streets, at dusk, past adults they had never seen before. Researchers who study this legend point to something specific: the surgical mask. In Japan, masks were already common, worn for health, for privacy, for anonymity. A mask makes a stranger unreadable. You cannot read kindness in a covered face. You cannot read intention. Kuchisake-Onna wasn't just a monster. She was the embodiment of a very specific, very modern fear. The fear of the anonymous stranger. The fear of the city itself. Older Japanese spirits, Yuki-Onna, the snow woman, Kappa, the river creature, were tied to nature. To forests, rivers, mountains. Kuchisake-Onna was the first major spirit born from streets, sidewalks, and suburbs. She wasn't a warning about the forest. She was a warning about each other. Part 4. She never left. The panic of 1979 faded by autumn, but the story didn't disappear. It became something Japanese children still tell each other today, a name everyone recognizes, a story passed down for nearly 50 years. In 1996, a film gave her an updated origin, a botched plastic surgery. The fear evolves, but the shape stays the same. In 2007, another film brought her back again. Anime references her constantly. Even now, she appears in horror games and viral videos made by people who weren't even born in 1979. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Every generation finds its own version of the masked stranger. The question that should not have an answer. The fear that wearing a covering makes someone unknowable. And maybe that's why, even now, if someone asks you late at night, "Am I pretty?" the safest answer might be to just keep walking. Kuchisake-Onna was never really about a woman with a slit mouth. She was about what we don't know, about the people standing right next to us. If you want more stories that reveal what's hiding underneath the legend, this channel will keep digging. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next story is already being unearthed. And as always, where darkness meets curiosity,